From the Rabbi. So, Rabbi Freeman, you tell me about this interesting situation in Atlanta, Georgia. We're filming live here from Atlanta, Georgia. Mm-hmm. The Jewish National Fund is hosting a breakfast of honor, I think it's for a local pastor here in Atlanta, Georgia, a pastor who's done a lot of work for Israel and has really supported Israel, a great supporter of Israel.
Right.
So the Jewish National Fund thought it was a great idea to honor him, which I can't argue with that.
I think he's taken, like the last year or two, 900 people to Israel.
Wow.
On his trips, and he's raised a whole boatload of money for Israel.
Wow. So definitely a friend of the Jews, a friend of Israel.
Friend of Israel,
wow.
Absolutely a friend of Israel.
So the problem here is, and I think it leads us into a deeper discussion, the problem is the Reform Jews and the conservative Jews of Atlanta are boycotting the event. They're not going to it. They're boycotting it. So I assume this guy must have done something pretty wrong. Maybe there's a deep story, something in his past is pretty wrong. No. The reason they're not going to show up to this event and the reason they are asking their congregations to boycott this event is because this pastor is against gay marriage. This pastor has the guts to agree with the Torah. He has this, at least what it says in the Torah. We'll talk about the translation in a minute. He is taking the Torah literally, and he's against gay marriage. Now, for me, I don't want to talk about gay marriage. I don't care if you support gay marriage, you don't support gay marriage. And I don't care if you're a Reformed Jew or conservative Jew. I grew up a Reformed Jew. And here's how I felt. Way back when, 20 years ago, when I was a kid in Virginia. And what I kind of remember about Reform Judaism, maybe it's just my memory, is I remember it as being, I gained a lot from it. I really did. I thought it was a great thing for me. I lived in a small town. I got to admit, it was only one or two Jewish kids. I was kind of in school. I didn't want to stand out that much. So as a Reformed Jew, we were kind of like everybody else. We had the organ playing at the temple, so we weren't any different when the people came to our bar mitzvahs. We went out and played with the kids on Saturdays. We did everything, and we kind of had Judaism when we needed it. Now, I don't think it was that bad of a thing at the time because I got a good base for my religion. Now, 20 years later, after I went through college and I went later on, I decided now I'm looking for a little bit more. And I had that base of Judaism. I had a strong belief in God. And then I went out and searched and found more. And I think for Judaism, that might be okay because we're the kind of religion that it's always a moving thing. You're growing. And I felt that Reform Judaism helped me grow. But now, again, nothing against Reform Judaism or conservative Judaism, it seems a little different. It seems that somehow, because I guess of the progressive nature of Reform Judaism, where, hey, we're going to be modern and we got to be like everybody else, it seems to have turned into a secular progressive organization. And it seems like conservative Judaism is going down the same path. Right now, I think it's hard to separate. Now, listen, nothing wrong with being a secular progressive. Here's a shock. I'm not one. I want to announce that here today. I'm not a secular progressive. But I think it's okay to be one. And I think it's okay to be a Reformed Jew. I think the problem is the two can't really merge together. You can be a secular progressive, but you can't be a secular progressive on a Saturday at your Reformed temple because I don't think the two fit. I think they're mutually exclusive. And I think now the main goal of secular progressivism is to fight against religion, is to be anti-religious. So when you go to a Reform shul and it's now a secular progressive organization, I think there's a big conflict going on there. How does it survive? How can you go to the same place to get both things? And I don't think religion and secular progressiveness can survive together, and I think that's the problem. That's where I stand from this thing. Well, I don't blame Reform Judaism because I got something out of it. Maybe some people don't, or maybe my memory's a little hazy of what it was.
Right.
I don't think the two can survive together.
Wow. Well, I think that not only is it impossible for the two to survive together, but it creates contradictions so that you actually end up undermining, by embracing one, you end up undermining core principles and core values of your own.
I agree.
Let's say we've got a Reform rabbi. There is a Reform rabbi, there are a number of them, and they are not going to attend this event. As a matter of fact, the rabbi in whose synagogue, in whose temple the event is taking place, is not attending.
Wow.
Now, they rented the place, so he didn't want to deny them the rental.
Right.
Like, he wasn't going that far, that like, we won't even rent this place to you. So he's renting out the synagogue to them, but he is not going to attend, and he's encouraging his congregation not to attend, even though the event is taking place in his facility. So now, here's a question. Said Rabbi, I believe, I don't know this for a fact, but I would guess that the Rabbi believes in the principle of hakaras hatov, recognizing good. When someone has done good for you,
Right.
I think he believes that you're supposed to be grateful. Gratitude is probably one of his core values. I'm sure he teaches his children. I'm sure he believes you should be grateful.
I would assume so.
Okay, now, we have a person here, Pastor Stanley, pastor of this mega church, and he is an outspoken critic of gay marriage. Now, Reform Rabbi believes in homosexual marriage, and he's a proponent to that. He's opposed to people who are opposed to it. Okay,
Before you go on, did the Reform community, and I don't know about the specific rabbi, did he believe or did they believe in gay marriage before 2 years ago, 3 years ago?
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's kind of interesting because the truth is, if Martin Luther King were to be honored at a breakfast nowadays,
he wasn't
based on his
right.
based on his attitudes, and which were actually like nothing special. His attitudes were pretty commonplace at the time. I can pretty much guarantee you that Martin Luther King, I don't know what his personal attitudes were towards homosexuals, but I'm pretty much can guarantee you that Martin Luther King would have been abhorred at the thought of homosexual marriage.
But I'm assuming so would have my rabbi been back when I grew
Yeah,
up.
and probably he would have too.
Right.
So, of course, if he would show up now to be honored at the JNF breakfast, I guess they wouldn't go to that either, you know.
Right, I guess so.
Or I guess they would hold that within the passage of time he would have become enlightened and changed his
I guess
mind.
that's what progressivism means, and
Right.
maybe he would have evolved like
Right.
the president. But okay, I'm
Right,
sorry to
yes.
interrupt.
So it is a little bit shocking that something that everyone universally held, including President Obama when he ran for his first term.
Yes.
And you know he came out squarely behind the what was it? There was I forget what the name of the Marriage Act. There was
Right,
a bill
absolutely.
for his
Yep.
support of Marriage Act
Yep.
or something like that. And he was for that, as was Hillary Clinton and all that. And of course, you know, they flipped on that. But
No, they evolved.
they evolved. They evolved on that,
Right,
right?
right,
Which I
right.
guess, you know, some people believe in evolution and some people don't.
right.
But they so they evolved on that. Now that was a scant 7 years ago.
Well, the evolution actually was a scant 3 years ago.
Yeah, right.
So
Right, they made their statement when he was
Right.
running in 2008.
Right.
I mean, it was clearly in one camp. So he flipped on that. So I guess at this point we have no tolerance for people that haven't made the switch fast enough.
Right,
I mean,
right.
like you gotta come around on that right away. Okay, so they haven't. But now, here's the deal. So I understand. You don't like Pastor Stanley. You're opposed to him. You're opposed to what he stands for and all that type of stuff. Now, Pastor Stanley, by all accounts, has helped the Jewish people. He's helped the state of Israel. No one's arguing about that. He raises money. He, obviously, the JNF to develop the land of Israel. He brings his congregants over for tours. They spend money in Israel. They support Israel. They're good for Israel. Okay. But now, we believe as Jews in gratitude. So do you not show gratitude for someone who's done something good for you? Or do you only show gratitude to people who have done something good for you if everything else in their life also matches up to all of your values? If someone were to be drowning and Pastor Stanley would extend a hand and say, grab onto me. So say, excuse me, what is your opinion on, excuse me, take your hand back. I'm not.
Right.
No. And then let's say even take it a step further. Let's say I am willing to grasp his hand and he pulls me out of the water and now I live. Now I say to him, you know, Pastor Stanley, I really would like to show gratitude to you, but I really can't thank you because your attitude on homosexual marriage is upsetting to me, and therefore you do not deserve thanks, even though you did just save my life.
Right.
But you don't deserve thanks because I don't like your attitude and your position on this other issue, unrelated as it might be. Now, I can understand if, for example, let's say Pastor Stanley or some person was committing some type of crime. Let's say, he was running a prostitution ring. And then he wants to take the money from the prostitution ring and give that to Israel. And then they're honoring him for all the money he's given to Israel. Someone I could understand would say, that's dirty money. I don't want to honor that money. Look at all the people it hurt in order to be obtained. I get that. But I don't see here in any way how Pastor Stanley is particularly profiting or benefiting from his stance on opposition to gay marriage. So you can't say, I don't see the correlation between the two unless we examine everyone with a fine-tooth comb. And then, as a matter of fact, I would like to take it a step further. Let's say I have personal set of values. Let's say I believe that everyone should observe the Torah.
Right.
If a Jew doesn't observe the Torah, say, I can't speak to you because you don't observe the Torah. I don't like your opinion. What if I don't like someone's opinion? Let's say I'm an opponent of gay marriage and someone else is a proponent of it. Would I be appropriate in boycotting them? Could I not speak down, sit down with them, have a cup of coffee? I mean, what's the deal? If the guy helped me out, give me a ride. If I ran out of gas and he pulled by and he was giving me a ride to the gas station, would I say, excuse me, what is your attitude on gay marriage? Oh, you're for it? Oh, I'm sorry, I'm against it. I'll wait for the next car.
Or even to take it a step further, if this was not a pastor, if this was a Jew, Rabbi Freeman, if you were being honored there, and I don't know what your feelings are in gay marriage, but let's just assume you're against it, would they boycott you?
Yeah.
I mean, and then my question is, are you not a Jew? Are they saying you're not a good Jew? You're not a proper? Because I know in the olden days, it used to be the Reform Jews that were worried that the Orthodox Jews were saying, hey, well, you're not a real Jew because you don't believe in this. Are they now saying you're not a Jew?
Right.
Do they go through their congregation before they take their dues and say, do you believe in gay marriage? We're not going to take your dues. I mean, is that the next thing they're going to do?
I would wonder if a rabbi voiced his opinion that he is opposed to gay marriage, would a Reform rabbi be allowed to sit together with that rabbi in the Atlanta Rabbinical Council?
Well, you should find that out really soon, shouldn't you?
or they say, well, I can't sit with you, and it'd be impossible.
Or just to add a little bit to it, it doesn't have to be about the homosexual thing. What if they found out, and this is true, I'm a Washington Redskin fan. Am I allowed to go to that show? Would they honor me unless I denounce the Redskins before I go into the show? I mean, because you can take this as far as you want to take it, and I'm not saying that as a joke. I know some of my family members up north who don't call them the Redskins anymore. They call them the Skins, as does everybody in their shul. They call them the Skins, and they live in Washington.
Right. Wow.
So it's not just a homosexuality question here.
Right. So what really happens is, and this is the point that I'm trying to make, it actually twists where you actually, when you dedicate yourself to a particular cause, the Torah says, this is a statement in the Talmud, that people that have mercy on unmerciful people will end up being violent to merciful people. And this is a general principle. If you are misplaced mercy or care or concern will end up leading to people who actually deserve it being denied it. Okay. And here's what's happening. There's a man that deserves the gratitude of the Jewish community for what he has done. Now, he's got some other attitudes and some other areas of life that you disagree with. But the actions that he's done deserve gratitude, but he's being denied the gratitude that he observes because it is felt that I have to stand up for some other principle. To me, I disagree with the principle. I think that shows that principle is really a misplaced principle, because if it was a truly appropriate principle, then you could embrace everyone. It wouldn't get in your way of other good principles. We have two good principles are clashing here, and they really shouldn't clash. When it comes for goodness, shouldn't be. If you believe it's good, it should not interrupt other good. if you really believe that homosexuals should have the right to marry, that should not lead you to the conclusion that you should not show gratitude. Because everyone knows that gratitude is a good thing. And if it leads you to that conclusion, there's something wrong with your original position. That's what I believe. It's an indicator.
All right, now I don't want to put you on the spot here, but I'm sure the phones are lighting up right now with one question they want to ask you, Rabbi Freeman. Now, this is a tough question. I don't mean to put you on the spot. But let's reverse things a little bit. There's a nice gay couple out there, and they are collecting money for Israel. They are supporting Israel. They are bringing people to Israel, and the shul wants to honor them. Are you going? Are you going to support that?
So it would. That is a very good, very, very, very good question. And if there is a gay man or couple, and their involvement and support of the state of Israel, or their attendance at my synagogue for that matter, has nothing to do with their gay conduct, then I would
assume it doesn't.
I would support it. Right. I would support it. Now, if, for example, at the speech, when they get up to make their speech and we're presenting them the award, and they say that we're so honored that you have seen fit to honor us as a gay couple for raising money. At that point, I'm out the door.
And I assume the same thing with there. If this guy, the pastor, stood up and started making a speech against gay marriage, that would be wrong, and then people would walk out.
Out the door. Out the door.
Good.
Right,
good.
for sure.
Okay.
Right, for sure. You can't do that. If you want to mix them, if you want to somehow tie them together, like I said, and if there's some linkage, even if the money, the guy, the donor who has ill-gotten gains and he gives it to charity, you don't honor that. That's not up for being honored, and people should not attend something like that. I got that 100%.
But other than that, if he happens to be a homosexual, but this has nothing to do with him being a homosexual, and he's supporting Israel, no problem with that.
Right.
Oh, by the way, I just want to throw in another question. It has nothing to do with that. If you have a gay rabbi, can you shake the gay rabbi's husband's hand? Sorry, I thought I would bring that up. It has nothing to do with the conversation.
In the gay synagogue, everyone has to sit mixed.
And can you shake the Rebbitzin's hand? And I'm just not really sure, but we'll talk about that later.
All of these many questions.
Well, that'll be another show, I guess. I'm sure.
Right on the front burner there, that have to be dealt with.
But again, I think you answered the answer to that question should be the answer that the rabbi at the Reform or Conservative temple or synagogue should have thought the same way.
Yeah.
I mean, if this has something to do with gay marriage, okay, then they can protest it because he's anti-gay marriage and he's given an anti-gay marriage speech.
I mean, if the JNF was honoring the Reform rabbi, and the Reform rabbi is an outspoken proponent of gay marriage, and I happen to believe that gay marriage is a horrible thing, it's bad for society, it's against the Torah, it's against everything I believe, then would they say by that same token that I should not attend the JNF dinner honoring the Reform rabbi because of his position? And maybe if so, it's really interesting because that has not really been the tenor. This is as an Orthodox Jew where, we are constantly being chided that we have to be open and accepting and, not identify people. People are people, not identify causes when I see a person. If there is someone that's doing something, he's promoting something, I try to separate his cause from the person. But I guess they're saying, no, we don't separate the cause from the person.
And I come back to, I think, my original point. I think the problem is, and I don't think it's the original intent of Reform Judaism, Conservative Judaism, even though the original intent is not always what happens, was not this. What happens when you're progressive when your goal is to be modern and to keep up with the times, it becomes progressivism, and progressivism by nature, by the nature of the word, doesn't stop here. And I think what's happened, at least recently, I don't know when it happened, you might have a better idea of when it happened, is Reform Judaism has become more of a secular, progressive organization. I mean, I got to admit, I've been to a lot of my friends' kids' bar mitzvahs that are Reformed, and most of them, they're going to talk about global warming when you go in there. And I think right now it's almost a litmus test when you go into one of these shuls that you got to be pro the whole global warming concept, homosexual, gay marriage, and I think it's become there's no difference. I guess that's how you bring people into the shul or into the temple, is because you're going to talk about global warming. And I think that's where it's become. So whatever I'm sure, you'll soon will have transgender rabbis. I don't know if you'll have them at your shul, but there'll be some transgender rabbis coming in, because that's what's in today. And tomorrow, if something's in where I can't think what the next thing will be, but I'm sure there's a list. I think you'll have that. And maybe it's more of a secular thing now, and that's the only reason people go is for a secular cause, because they don't have religion.
Well, what will happen when people start to boycott the Torah? Because
they are kind of boycotting Torah. I think that's the whole point of secular relativism.
I can't come to your temple because in your temple is an ark, and in the ark is a Torah, and in the Torah it says that homosexuality is an abomination. And as long as that book resides in the ark, I mean, I can understand if you'd put it maybe in the library as a reference book so that people remember what it is, but you're putting it in the ark, which is in the center point.
That's a real good point.
And there it sits, and you take it out, and everyone's supposed to kiss it. You hold it up to the people, and everyone's supposed to kiss the book, but yet the book says it's an abomination. So what do you do with that? Well, you could say, well, historically, this was something that we embraced. And, this is why, I guess, it's the shockingness of the newness of all of this. It's the shockingness of the fact that, for years and years, it's been one way. And now the fact that everyone hasn't gotten on board immediately, It is intolerable. So,
but I think that's pretty much what the whole political correctness situation is right now. I mean, I get it. Things change, and now it's acceptable. And I'm not even talking about my opinions on homosexuality. I mean, I don't really have an opinion on it. But when did it become that the people who've held the position that we've held now for thousands of years have all of a sudden become evil? I mean, if you don't believe in that, if you don't, again, in the next election, it's going to be all about sexism and war on women. And if you don't believe this, that you're an evil, horrible Neanderthalic man, and I think that's why I'm saying I think the issue maybe is that this is no longer. This might sound bad, Reform Judaism, but it's just secular progressivism that has a little bit of a tie to ancient Judaism in it.
Well, it certainly is sending a message that the message is that we're supposed to judge people by the totality of all of their views. And if that would be the case, this is something that, really the Orthodox community has been chided on for not wanting to participate and just standing off to the side because I don't agree with you about X, that's why I can't cooperate with you on Y. And that has been a big criticism. Okay, listen, fine, you disagree with me about my attitude about the religion, but can't we work together on communal issues that don't affect us? I guess it turns out that we can't work together on communal issues that don't affect the particular issue that divides us. Everything is colored by the particular issue or belief issue that divides us. And, okay, that's an interesting message that I didn't. I was hearing something different for many, many years, but now I guess we.
And it's changed. And I just I keep taking it further. Could a Reform rabbi, go to a funeral and do the funeral of a congregant that is maybe a conservative or doesn't believe in gay marriage? How would he possibly be able to do that and intend that? And
I guess he would have to beg for their forgiveness posthumously. Okay, they lived a horrible life because they believed in what they believed in, but we hope that by now they've seen the truth and God has straightened them out and he sees it our way. But I would say the bottom line is that there's a concept called gratitude. And gratitude has to be shown. And if someone has done something good, that's incontrovertible. And it's very interesting, by the way, that Israel is very acceptant of homosexuals and grants a lot of homosexual rights. What if Pastor Stanley said, no, I don't want to support Israel because the country is too...
Well, that you would think that would be the next step. I mean, and especially since I would assume that these Reform rabbis are not talking about Islamic terrorism that much and are not criticizing Islam that much, where their opinion of homosexuality is you throw them off a building if you find a homosexual. But we're not, but I assume if they're taking the progressive line, that's not where they go, but then they'll criticize, this pastor. And it's kind of tough to say. I mean, it's a tough thought to. I mean, I heard the other day of even of a group of rabbis that were in the White House letting Obama know, you need to be tough on Israel. We'll support you. Don't worry, but we'll cover for you. So maybe it's the same thing. So maybe you're right. Maybe the next step is, listen, Israel is in the right place.
If Israel should happen to make peace with its neighbors, and they were celebrating that, I wonder if they would boycott the celebration because most of Israel's neighbors, they're extremely vociferous about their denial of homosexual rights. I don't know if any of Israel's neighbors where a homosexual would not be executed just for being a public homosexual.
Right.
So let's say tomorrow they made peace, and it would be a great, wonderful thing. But I guess you couldn't really celebrate it because they made peace with people that they're against. It's a confusing world.
It is a confusing world, and I think, again, I don't want to take any stand and say this is any kind of attack on Reform or Conservative Judaism, because, that I have different opinions of, I think Judaism is a journey, and some people might start here as long as they continue the journey and just don't take the easy path, which sometimes people look at Reform Judaism as that. But I think they better stop and take a look. Are you really, is this really Judaism, or is this really secular progressivism? Is this just how we feel?
What I think that the people are going to find out is that Orthodox Jews have been taking stands on things for a long time, and we've learned how to do that and how to take our lumps for it.
Right.
I think this is like a new foray into the area of taking a stand and saying things are no or things are wrong. It's not so simple, and not for the faint-hearted. This taking a stand.
Taking a stand, and there's a lot of other tough things that come with it.
Yeah.
I guess we'll see where this thing progresses, so to speak, and hey, maybe they'll learn a little bit from this show.
Right.
We'll see.
I just hope the eggs are good at the breakfast on Thursday morning.
Well, that'll be probably a lot extra, so you have a double helping, so you'll be okay. All right, interesting topic, and we'll see you next week on Jeff and the Rabbi.